boys and girls. We're going to continue with fairy tales today. Last week you read The Three Little Pigs. This week we're going to read the fractured fairy tale, one of my favorites, the true story of the Three Little Pigs. So we have the original story and a fractured fairy tale, and we're going to see how it's fractured. Remember, this week we've been talking about all different ways you can fracture, change, or adapt a fairy tale from its original version. Here are some of the ways. You can change the main character, like change the character from a boy to a girl. You can change the setting, so you could change the place from like a castle to a house or a forest to a palace. You can change the time from like once upon a time to something more modern. Change the point of view. Change who is telling the story, if someone different is telling the story than the first time. Change the main events, old-fashioned to modern. Change the motivations, why the character did it, change why they did it. Maybe they did it for a good reason, so they did it for a bad reason or something like that. Or change the object, like a pea to a bone, bread to pizza, change some object in the story. So we're going to read the true story of the Three Little Pigs, and we're going to see what was fractured in this story to change it from its original version. So this is the true story of the Three Little Pigs by A. Wolfe. Everybody knows the story of the Three Little Pigs, or at least they think they do. But I'll tell you a little secret. No one knows the real story because nobody has ever heard my side of the story. I'm the wolf, Alexander T. Wolfe. I don't know how this whole big bad wolf thing got started, but it's all wrong. Maybe it's because of our diets. Hey, it's not my fault that wolves eat cute little animals like bunnies and sheep and pigs. That's just the way we are. If cheeseburgers were cute, folks would probably think that you were big and bad too. But like I was saying, the whole big bad wolf thing is all wrong. The real story is about a sneeze and a cup of sugar. This is the real story. Way back in Once Upon a Time, I was making my dear old granny a birthday cake. I had a terrible sneezing cold, and I ran out of sugar. So I walked down the street to ask my neighbor for a cup of sugar. Now this neighbor was a pig, and he wasn't too bright either. He had built his whole house out of straw. Can you believe it? I mean, who in his right mind would build a house out of straw? So of course, the minute I knocked on the door, it fell right in. I didn't want to walk into someone else's house, so I called, little pig, are you in? No! I was just about to go home without the cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. Then when my nose started to itch, I felt a sneeze coming on. Well, I huffed, and I snuffed, and I sneezed a great sneeze. And you know what? The whole darn straw house fell down. And right in the middle of the pile of straw was the first little pig, dead as a doornail. He had been in the house the whole time. It seemed like a shame to leave a perfectly good ham dinner lying there in the straw, so I ate him up. Think of it as a cheeseburger just lying there. I was feeling a little better, but I still didn't have my cup of sugar. So I went to the next neighbor's house. That neighbor was the first little pig's brother. He was a little bit smarter, but not much. He had built his house out of sticks. I rang the bell to the stick house and nobody answered. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? He yelled back, go away, wolf. You can't come in. I'm shaving the hairs on my chinny chin. I had just grabbed the doorknob when I felt another sneeze coming on. I huffed and I snuffed and I tried to cover my mouth, but I sneezed a great sneeze. And you're not going to believe it. This guy's house fell down just like his brother's. When the dust cleared, there was a second little pig, dead as a doornail. Wolf's honor. Now, you know that food will spoil if you leave it out in the open, so I did the only thing there was to do. I had dinner again. Think of it as a second helping. I was getting awfully full, but my cold was feeling a little better. And I didn't have that cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. So I went to the next house. This guy was the second and first pig's little brother. He must have been the brains of the family. He had built his house out of bricks. I knocked on the brick house. No answer. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? And do you know what that rude little porker answered? Get out of here, Wolf. Don't bother me again. Talk about impolite. He probably had a whole sack full of sugar and wouldn't give me even one little cup for my dear sweet old granny's birthday cake. What a pig! I was just about to go home and maybe make a nice birthday card instead of a cake when I felt my cold coming on. I huffed and I snuffed and I sneezed once again. And then that third little pig yelled, and your granny can go sit on a pin. Now, I'm usually a pretty calm fellow, but when somebody talks about my granny like that, I go a little crazy. When the cops drove up, of course, I was trying to break down the pig's door, and the whole time I was huffing and puffing and sneezing and making a real scene. The rest, as they say, is history. The newspaper reporters found out about the 2 pigs that I had for dinner. They figured a sick guy going to borrow a cup of sugar didn't sound very exciting, so they jazzed up the story with all that huff and puff and blow your house down. And they made me to be the big, bad wolf. That's it. The real story. I was framed. But maybe you could loan me a cup of sugar. Okay, boys and girls, so that's our fractured fairy tale from our original fairy tale. And we're going to use what we learned to see how this was fractured, what they made different in this story to make it a fractured fairy tale. Hope you enjoyed, boys and girls.